Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Double Meal Dad. I'm your host, the Double Meal Dad, and the concept of the Double Meal Dad is a simple one. How can we stretch our dollar farther by buying foods that are on sale? We're going to show you that today. But then make different meals with that food so that we don't feel like we're eating the same thing over and over. In essence, the double meal. So today, I want to start out first by giving a shout out to some of the fine folks who have added us to their circle on Google, the fine folks at Hoover's Hatchery in Rudd, Iowa, HEB for your very nice comments on Facebook. We appreciate that. And all of the friends and family that have posted on there and the new people that have come to join the Double Meal Dad. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your comments and your suggestions. And actually, you guys are the reason for this show. This show is called This, That, and Chicken Soup. So we're going to do a couple of little different things, and feel free to fast forward to different parts that you like. But today we're going to show you how to do broth. Remember, we have our 4 soup bag. So mine got a little full, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of that today. I'm going to show you how to get through that. We're going to do the Double Meal Dad's philosophy on shopping to show you what I do and how I shop and how I save money. And then we're going to show you some cutting techniques. That's a big shout out to my stepsister and my stepmom in California, who I got to have dinner with this last week, and they gave me some suggestions, and we're going to try to do that, a little bit of that today, just to, somebody said, you Double Meal Dad, you look like you know how to cut. Can you show us how you use those techniques? So I'm going to do that, and hopefully that'll keep you from cutting your fingers and, getting hurt. And then the last thing is we're going to make the chicken soup. So I'll show you how we go through that. Let's go ahead, before we start that, I'm going to go ahead and just get started. So I just took my 4 soup bag, and I've got a nice pot here, and I'm just going to dump all of that in there. There we go. So we got it in there. And now, guess what we're going to do with the 4 soup bag? We're just going to throw it in the freezer. Because we're gonna get more stuff, so you want to rinse it out, you can rinse it out if you want to, but it's all frozen, so nothing's going to get bad or spoil in there. I'm just going to go over to the sink and get myself some water and go ahead and just fill up my pot here. Now, this is just, all we're doing is, and I'll show you when I get this, all we're doing is just putting enough water to cover all of these vegetables. And this is fun because when you have a red onion in here, you got that skin. It's kind of like what wineskins do to red wine. They they impart their color to it. So the broth gets really rich and it's got a really great color to it. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. And you'll see I just covered the vegetables. That's all I did. I just covered the vegetables with it. Go ahead and get that going. Now I'm going to bring that up to temp and get that really warm and really hot and bubbling, and then I'm going to turn it down. Actually, on the Double Meal Dad's, I'm going to add a little salt and pepper here. On the Double Meal Dad's stove, we've got some different burners here, and this is one of the hot burners. And unfortunately for us, when we try to turn this down to cool, onto a low temperature, just so that we can let it simmer, it's still a little too hot, so I'll actually have to switch this to another burner. And your burners are going to differ, depending on what your oven or what your stove is set up like. So we're just going to get that going. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my shopping philosophy. Remember what the deal is here. Double Meal Dad is trying to stretch his dollar farther by buying foods that are on sale. And I don't necessarily want you to buy cheap stuff. You don't have to, skimp on everything. But when you come down to the total price for your meal, you're going to save a lot of money. So, I happen to have my HEB circular. This could be whatever your circular is. If you're in the West Coast and you use Vons, or if you're in the North and you use Jules or Dominic's, whatever. Just whatever your circular is. So this week, HEB has on sale the beef ribeye steaks. Now, there's 2 recipes we're going to do for this. So we're going to do a show on ribeye steaks later this week or next week, where we're going to show you how to grill and the temperature, how you can check the temperature. So if you want like a rare or a medium or a medium well, we don't recommend cooking ribeyes past medium, but if you're one of those people who likes it a little more done, we'll go through there. But $3.97 a pound. So that's a great price for ribeyes, and it's going to be Mama Rose and I this week, so we're going to cook up a couple ribeyes for ourselves, but I'm going to buy 4 ribeyes. because I'm going to make a double meal dad recipe for stuff on a shingle, which is just a hodgepodge of stuff to put on top of some bread, and it's a really simple recipe, one you can start before you go to work, and it'll come out great. The other thing is, look at this, HEB, the new wild Gulf shrimp. So down here in the South, you know, we're fortunate if you live anywhere near the Gulf Coast. Gulf shrimp is probably my favorite shrimp there is out there. It's on sale for $6.97 a pound. Now it's normally $9.97, so that's a $3 savings. So, you know, you're saying to me, well, that doesn't really sound inexpensive, double meal dad, it's $7 a pound. But when you think about shrimp, very healthy, high in protein. We're going to grill some up, and then we're going to make a shrimp and rice dish that I have a recipe for that I'll share with you, and we're going to go through that. So, you know, that's one of the things that we're going to go ahead and put on here because that's going to save us some money in the long run. And one other thing I'm going to buy is I'm going to make a ragu, and that's not a jar thing. That's an actual Italian dish. And chicken thighs are $1 a pound. So even though I'm not going to cook chicken thighs this week, big savings, I'm going to go ahead and buy myself some chicken thighs and put them in the freezer, and then I'll use them. And I'll wait for pork shoulder to go on sale, which is the other ingredient in that recipe. And then when the pork shoulder goes on sale, I'll have my chicken thighs and my pork shoulder, and in the long run I'll save money. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and put my list together. And one other little tip I do with my list, and this may help you, if you go grocery shopping every week, you know the layout of your grocery store. So, you know, we know our cheese, and then we've got our deli, and then we've got our produce section, and then we pretty much know the aisles down there, and then you get meats, and the dairies and the frozen are at the end. So I actually set up my shopping list. So I have my cheese, my veggies, my dairy, my frozen, my cheese, my veggies, my meat, my dairy, my frozen. So I can just go down the list here, and I can actually just start crossing it off instead of sometimes you just write out a list and you're jumping up and down and you get to aisle 12 and you're like, oh, I forgot tortillas, and those are back at aisle 1. So that's how I'm going to set up my list. So when we come back, we're going to show you how to put together the chicken soup. We're going to get our shopping done, and we're going to come back and we're going to go through all that, and I'll give you a total on the grocery bill, and we'll go from there. So see you guys in a few minutes. Hey y'all, welcome back. So we're back from grocery shopping, and I just wanted to kind of give you a tally. So we went through our list there, and we went grocery shopping. I got about 2.5 pounds of shrimp for about $17. I got 2 really good sized ribeyes, which, like I said, we'll use in another show to show you how to do those. And so my total bill for all of the food that I'm going to make 5 meals out of was $39.20. So when you look at the total cost, what it's costing you per meal, you know, you're in the area of $10. We'll buy some extra vegetables and some rice and stuff like that, where the, you know, per serving cost is $1, $2 for that. So per meal, you're only really spending about $10 a meal. So just a good way to do that. And one little double meal dad tip: never go shopping at the grocery store when you're hungry, because you always end up buying more. So we spent a little bit more than $39.20, but we made some taco dip and some other things. So we'll show that in another show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you the vegetable broth that we started. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a strainer and a big bowl here. And a little tip, if you're working by yourself in the kitchen, since Mama Rose is handling the film, the camera, I'm working by myself. I'm just going to take a little piece of masking tape, and all you got to do is just kind of tape that down a little bit, and that'll keep it from moving on you while you're emptying out your broth here. And then we're just going to go and grab our vegetable broth, and I'm going to kind of use the lid here to help me a little bit. And you just see how easy this is, right? And look at all that good, rich color I got coming out of the broth. So we're just straining out all those bits and pieces, so we've just got the pure vegetable broth out of there. Careful if you're not used to dealing with hot stuff like this, that the steam doesn't get you in the arm like that. You may want to turn yourself a little bit. And that's it. The broth is done. I'm going to let that cool just a little bit and pull this off right here, the tape off, and we'll pull out all the little bits out of there. And our strainer's all set, and we'll set this aside. So that's it. Our vegetable broth's ready to go, and we'll use that in another show. Now, here's the thing with any time you're making broth, whether it's chicken broth, vegetable broth, whatever you're making, one little trick. Sometimes recipes will call for a couple of tablespoons of chicken stock. And one of the things you can do is get yourself just a ice cube tray. You know, a lot of us have ice makers now in our refrigerators, and we don't have any of those, but you know, they're a couple bucks at the store, the plastic ones. Let that cool a little bit and then put it in those plastic trays. Stick that in your freezer, and every time you need a couple tablespoons of chicken broth, just crack the tray and pull a couple of those off, and you got yourself some ready-made chicken broth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty out this pot. Remember, we don't like to have to wash too many things in the Double Meal Dad kitchen, so I'm really just going to right now help myself out by, I've got all this great flavor in the bottom of this pot. I'm going to get rid of all of the leftover bits. Now, those of you who have composters or something like that, you let that cool off, and you got great stuff to throw in the composter. So again, we're just reutilizing a lot of this stuff, so we're not going to wash this out real quick. So all those little leftover bits that I don't want in my soup, I'll get rid of those. And look, I got a nice clean pot to go ahead and start my chicken. So now we're going to make chicken soup. So that was pretty straightforward, pretty easy to go ahead and put together. I've got vegetable broth for another dish. I'm going to move this out of the way so that it's not in the camera shot, so you don't have to look at that. And we're going to start prepping for our chicken soup. So one of the things that came up during one of the comments was, you know, Double Meal Dad, I see how you're cooking. So Mama Rose, if you want to come in here a little bit tighter on these shots, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks. So the first thing I do with onions is I always cut the ends off. And notice I'm keeping my fingers back here. So I'm keeping my fingers back here, and I'm just putting pressure so the onion doesn't roll, because obviously the onion is round. Then the next trick, and remember what we said, sharp knife. So I just take the edge of the knife and I kind of put a line right through there. So what I'm doing is I'm getting just that outer layer of onion. And what that does is it makes it a little bit easier to peel. Now this is a yellow onion, so the yellow onions are a little bit harder than, you know, the white onions or the red onions. But still, you get that peel right there. You're just taking that last layer of onion off. Again, we're going to take this. I pull my soup bag out of the freezer, my 4 soup bag. And I'll just open that up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw that in there. Now, the next trick here is how we go ahead and we cut the onion. So there's a couple things I do. Number one is I'm going to cut this in half like this. So I'm just keeping my fingers away from the knife, and when you're using a knife, some people like to push into it. If you do that, it's all the pressure, it's how strong you are. The knife is meant to be pulled across the food, and that's what does the slicing. So if I just pull back just a little bit, notice I'm pulling back just a little bit, it'll make it easier to go through the onion or whatever it is you're cutting. Now, onions typically have kind of a side there that's not as good. You don't necessarily want to use that. It's not as flavorful. So the next thing I'm going to do is, you'll see some people kind of go like this and make a slice. It doesn't really help very much when you're cutting the onion. I'm just going to use the end of my knife here, and I'm going to slowly rock back and through, and that'll put a nice slice down there. And what this will do is when I do this, I'm going to come across the whole onion. It'll give me a chance to make some nice cubes out of there. Couple things. Number one, again, sharp knife. Number two is, whenever I'm cutting, I'm using kind of my knuckle here to keep the knife from going and cutting me. I'm keeping my fingers curled back. Keep those fingers curled back. The other thing is I'm not going very high with the knife, okay? Because we don't want to catch the knuckle with the blade, all right? So, a couple things I'm doing, right? First of all, I've got the knuckle forward. I'm putting the knife against that knuckle. Now, in some cases, you don't even need to. Just keep your fingers back far enough and just let the knife do the work. So, Mama, can you the shot's okay? You can see that there? And see, I'm just kind of laying the knife, and I'm making maybe just 1/4 inch lines right through the onion here. Now, towards the end, I'm just going to put a little pressure on this side, and I'm just going to use my knife and just make those cuts there. Okay? So we're just using that through it. Now, I'm coming the same way, I'm coming crossways now, and when I push down, and this way, instead of pulling back, I'm just going to slide into it. Remember, and look, I'm hardly putting any, and look what we got. We got nice little pieces that are just nice little square pieces here. So I'm going to push forward and let the knife do the work. Some people try to go like this, and then, you know, it's all the pressure of your hand, and typically that's when we make mistakes and we get cut. So let's just let the knife do the work. And see how easy that is? So now, and then, you know, this isn't, you don't have to be perfect here. We're not cooking in a French restaurant. We're making dinner for our family here, right? So be careful on the ends here. You know, you can use your fingers this way, but go slow and just kind of cut down that last piece. Now I'm going to use this for soup. I don't like that little tough end at the end there. And now we've got our onion sliced up. So I'll do this one more time for you. So again, this time I'm pulling across, but I'm leaving that knuckle, and my knife is just coming to the top of the onion. Okay? Just coming to the top of the onion. Right? And then I'm going, and I'm just rocking into it. That's the key. We're rocking into it. And then this has got a good end, so I'm just going to turn that sideways and cut it up. Okay? So, same principle. Now I'm going to do carrots. So here's a carrot. One thing, a lot of people like to peel their carrots. There's a lot of good vitamins and everything in the skin. I'll tell you that the skin is where a lot of the good vitamins are. So I do cut the ends off because, you know, of course you don't want to eat this little piece in your soup. And, you know, you don't want the little frayed end at the end there. So I will cut that off. But we're going to do the same thing. I'll go ahead and get a bowl here. I'll get this out of the way so you guys can see a little bit better. Just move this out of the way. Okay, get that cleaned up in a second here. We're going to do the same thing with the carrot, right? We're just going to, see that rocking motion there? And then if we do this, we're just going to, it's just going to be very easy to kind of, and what I'm doing is, I'm kind of caterpillaring my fingers along the carrot like this as I'm cutting. So what that's doing is, it's actually giving me, if you watch my fingers there, it's actually giving me a little bit more space to cut. Now, I would be standing here and it wouldn't be falling on the floor like it is now. If you're nervous about it, move your hand a little bit back. That's okay. Take your time. You don't have to do this fast, right? I can move my hand all the way back here. All I'm trying to do is keep that carrot from rocking to be able to cut that, okay? So that's all we're going to do. We're going to cut up some of those carrots. Now, a couple other things we're going to cut up here. It's going to be the same thing with celery. Again, I'm going to cut the fronds off and put that in my force soup. I'm going to cut the end off, put that in my force soup, and I'm going to do the same motion with celery. And again, it's real simple to kind of just get through the celery and get that all cut up. Now, one of the other things, and I'll cut all these up and then we'll get cooking with it. A couple other things. Parsnips. If you've never tried these before, I'm sure you've seen them in the grocery store. You're like, I don't know what that is. Very similar to a carrot, but a little bit more richer flavoring. So we're going to cut up some exactly the same way we do with the carrot. Now, one thing with this is when you get to the end here on a parsnip and you're cutting it, you know, as we were doing with our carrot, we're going down this way. This part may be a little bit too fat for you. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut that, just again, a little bit of forward pressure on it. And this way, when we slice it, we've got a little bit smaller piece than having a big round piece in our soup. So I'm going to cut one of those up. And then one other thing is turnips. Turnips are delicious. If you've never tried one, you want to give a turnip a try. Now this one, we are going to peel the turnip. So we're just going to pull that peel off on the outside of that. Some people do, you know, eat the skin. You're welcome to do that. It is edible, so you can eat it. But I just like the look of it better when you cook it this way. And it's kind of like a cross between a potato and a parsnip, so it's going to give us a lot of really good flavor. So I'm going to peel this up, cut that up using the same method, and then when we come back, I'll throw all the soup together and we'll get our chicken soup going. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, y'all, welcome back. We're ready to put the chicken soup together. So hopefully you learned a little bit about knife skills and using the knife. We want you to use it safely. We want to make sure that you're safe in the kitchen and that we don't get any cut fingers. So hopefully that tip helps you out. Let's go ahead and get the vegetables started. So I've got all these vegetables cut up here. I'm going to go ahead and we got one little bit left over from the veggie stock. I'm going to just pull that out of there. Got all my parsnip and carrots and onion and celery cut up. So I'm going to go ahead and start that going. Get that all cleaned out. Get that into my olive oil. I just put about a tablespoon of olive oil, a little bit more in there. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in there to get my vegetables to start sweating down. And I'm going to go ahead and get this going there. While I'm getting that going, I'm going to go ahead and take my turnip. And by the way, I mean, turnips are very high in vitamin C. They're very high in calcium. They're really good for you. They're very healthy for you. As far as the skin is concerned, the reason why I take the skin off is that, you know, for older turnips, they recommend removing the skin, and you never know, like, kind of the age and everything inside when you buy them. I buy mine at the H&B, so I'm sure they're pretty fresh. Anyway, this is a great substitute if you're going to use like a potato in a soup. You can certainly use a potato. Remember, higher in starch. This is going to be a lot healthier for you. High in calcium as well, so those of you who are looking for ways to supplement your calcium, we'll go ahead and put those over there. Then if you remember, in our chicken show, I showed you how to cut up a chicken, and we took those leftover bones and we roasted those while we were roasting the chicken. Plus, when we made the chicken enchiladas, Double Mill Dad had the chicken breast that I had baked. And I took the bones off of those as well before I put them in with the Rotel tomatoes and everything. So I took those chicken bones, and just like I did for my vegetable broth, I went ahead and I made myself some chicken broth. Now, I always recommend cooling down your broth, either in the refrigerator for a day or two or freezing it. And what that'll do is it'll cause the fat to come to the top. And what that allows you to do is then you can go ahead and, you know, take a skimmer, you know, just take a spoon, like a slotted spoon with some holes in it, or I have a big straining spoon like this, and you can just go right along the top and pull that fat out. That'll make your chicken taste a lot better and not as greasy. Plus, we had some leftover chicken meat from our baked chicken, so we just, and from the leftover bones. So we pulled out all the chicken pieces, and we're going to use that in our chicken soup. So our vegetables are getting sweated down here pretty good. We don't want to toast these. We don't want cooked vegetables. We just want to start to get it to lose their moisture a little bit. Now go ahead and I'll throw in the chicken in there. So now we got our chicken in there. And while that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some seasoning. So I keep it real simple for this recipe. You can do whatever you like, but I'm going to go ahead and just add 1 teaspoon of paprika. I like paprika in my chicken soup. And I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of just chicken rub. Chicken rub is a great flavoring for when you're just baking chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and put a teaspoon, about a little bit more of chicken rub in there. That gives you a lot of really good flavor. If you want it, you want a little heat, you can always add some sriracha or some red peppers. I'm going to have some black pepper in here. That's going to get my heat from that. Let's go ahead and start to put this in, get my chicken all cooked up, and then we're going to go ahead and heat up our broth. So all we have to do, remember, the chicken's all cooked, so I don't really want to brown it or overcook it. I'm just going to go ahead and add the broth. I've got the broth in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my turnips. So those boil through and become nice and soft, and we get a nice soup. Now, I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then once I have it up to a boil, I'm going to turn it down, and I'm going to simmer it. And really, that's it. I mean, how simple can it be? Sunday, couple minutes, we threw that together when we got back from grocery shopping. I've just got a little bit of cleanup. They had sourdough bread on sale. It was $3.38 with a $1 coupon. It was $2.38. We'll put that in a bowl. We'll put a little sourdough and just dip that in there. I'll show you. I'll serve it up in a little bit. The other option is we'll cook up a little egg noodles. Put a little egg noodle at the bottom of your bowl, and then ladle out your soup. So we'll come back. When we come back, we'll show you what the chicken soup looks like, and we'll serve it up, and we'll eat together. So see you guys in a few minutes. Thanks for joining me. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Double Meal Dad. Well, we've had our chicken soup going for about a little over an hour now, and I just boiled up some egg noodles. We've got some other things over here. I'm going to go ahead and just put this together for you real quick. Just going to take a couple of these egg noodles, go ahead and throw it right at the bottom of my dish. Just a little bit of egg noodle in there. And I'm going to go ahead and ladle up some of this chicken soup. I'm going to get some of that good parsnip and turnip and celery and some of those good chicken parts in there. And remember, you know, the chicken is already cooked through, so we don't need to cook this for a real long time in order to get that to be nice and tender. It's going to be tender right away. Getting some of this good broth here right on top of there. Oh, it smells so good. And what you're going to notice is a couple of things. First of all, remember, we roasted those bones when we created that stew. So when we use those bones that we made when we cut up the chicken, we roast them. That's going to give it a richer flavor. It's going to make it cook through. I'm going to go ahead and just grab a spoon here and just try this. Give me a little bit of the chicken and some of this broth and some of this turnip in there, and just, oh yeah. Oh, that's so good. A little bit of sourdough bread. I'll save the heel for Mama Rose there because that's her favorite part. Just dip a little bit of that sourdough in there and try that. Oh, so good. I like to soak my bread in the soup and let it sit in there. I got my vegetable broth over here. It's already cooled down. I'm going to go ahead. I just rinsed out the broth container that I was using for my chicken broth. Go ahead and do that. And then we're going to use this for our steak goulash, which we're going to make later. Remember, I bought those ribeye steaks. So, you know, real easy. I mean, 15-20 minutes it took us to put all this together. We let it slow cook on the stove. We opened up a cold beer. We watched a little bit of football on a Sunday. You got a great meal, real hearty. It's going to feed your family. Very good for you. We kept it low as far as the caloric intake because we cut out the potatoes and we put in some turnips in there, which is really good for you. So I hope you learned something new, a little bit maybe about cutting, a little bit about some other things, and keep those suggestions coming. We'll try to work them into other shows, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And just want to thank you again for spending some time with the Double Meal Dad. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.